I was transmigrated into a novel as the villainous supporting character to a powerful female CEO. My mission was to win her over, to make her fall in love with me. But the system got it wrong. The hero and heroine of this story already shared a fatal attraction. No matter what I did, they would always find their way to each other and fall in love. The hero of the story wasn't me. I was just a plot device, a stepping stone for their romance. I had failed the first 8 times. On the 8th attempt, Chloe and I were engaged. On our wedding day, the hero cried, asking her if my heart was black for daring to love my own aunt. Chloe simply said, "I'd like to see for myself." Then she carved my heart out of my chest while I was still alive. Now, in my 9th life, I was suddenly tired. I was done. I no longer wanted to pursue my adoptive aunt, Chloe. I chose to simply wait for death. Host, 9th reincarnation. Commence pursuit of Chloe. As the system's cold voice echoed, I opened my eyes. The agony of my last death lingered, a deep fear clouding my vision. Suddenly, I was dragged into the living room and forced to my knees. Chloe stood over me with a whip, lashing my back without mercy. Vicious red welts bled through my shirt. "You should not have harbored wicked thoughts for your aunt." 10 lashes. "You should not have harmed your uncle." 10 lashes. "You should not have thrown a tantrum and run away." 10 lashes. She listed 9 transgressions, delivering 90 lashes in total, stopping only when I collapsed, my consciousness fading. Ryan looked down at me, a lifeless heap on the floor, a smirk playing on his lips. Chloe stepped over my barely breathing body and said without expression, "Clean the floor. Throw him in the storage room. If he doesn't admit he was wrong, he can stay there forever." I woke to the searing pain. The storage room was dark and damp, the small cot cold and musty, stained with my blood. Moonlight streamed through a barred window, making the place feel like a cell. I had always known about Chloe's love for Ryan. They were the hero and heroine of this story, and I was just their stepping stone. All I did was try to complete my mission, and for that, I had been brutally murdered 8 times. Fate felt like a merciless hand clamped around my throat, suffocating me. I didn't want to pursue Chloe anymore. I just wanted to escape this endless abyss. I drifted back into a hazy sleep. The next day, I was jolted awake by a splash of cold water. Before I could even react, I was dragged out of the storage room and thrown onto the floor. Chloe's face was a mask of cold fury. "What did you put on that good luck charm?" Ryan was so sick he couldn't sleep all night. Her accusation hung in the air, and my pale face twisted with a bitter helplessness. What could I possibly have done? My silence only enraged her further. "It seems yesterday's discipline wasn't enough to teach you your lesson. This time, I won't be so lenient." She slapped me hard across the face, then grabbed my hair and slammed my head against the floor. The sickening thuds echoed like a death knell. My mind went blank, a loud ringing in my ears as her snarling face filled my vision. Blood spattered on the floorboards, blurring into fragmented memories. I remembered the day she came to the orphanage, like a savior, pulling me into her arms and whispering that we were a family now. I remembered being bullied, and how she had stormed into the school, forcing my tormentors to their knees. She had held my face, tears in her eyes, promising no one would ever hurt me again. Before I turned 18, she had cherished me, given me everything. Her world had revolved around me, so I let myself believe a fantasy. I held onto that unrealistic hope through each rebirth, thinking I could eventually win her over. It was all a delusion. Who could believe that this woman, who now hated me like a mortal enemy, was once the light of my salvation? Did you think hurting Ryan would make me want you? Get rid of your disgusting ideas. In this life and the next, I will only ever be your aunt. She forced me to my knees in the courtyard, telling me to stay there until I admitted my fault or died. I didn't doubt her willingness to kill me. After 9 lives and 8 brutal deaths, I understood the depth of her loathing. Now all I wanted was to get as far away from Chloe as possible. I knelt out there for 3 days and 3 nights. The sun beat down, the wind blew, and the wounds on my back festered. If it hadn't been Mr. Harrison's birthday, and his insistence on seeing me, she would have left me there. Fearing the old patriarch, Chloe finally relented. She had someone take me to bathe and dress me in dark clothing to hide my injuries. When I saw Mr. Harrison at the party, a flicker of life returned to my hollow eyes. He was the only person in this world who cared about me. He had even supported my attempts to win Chloe over. He took my hand, his expression shifting to alarm as he saw how pale and gaunt I was. "How did you get so thin? You look terrible. Did Chloe do this to you? I'm going to have a word with her." I quickly stopped him, shaking my head. "Grandfather, I'm fine." I didn't want to cause more trouble, knowing that his intervention would only lead to worse punishments for me later. Mr. Harrison stared into my eyes, and I knew he could see it, the utter emptiness in my soul. He sighed, his face etched with sorrow. When your parents died, they entrusted you to the Harrison family. I failed to look after you. He had always known how I felt, and he hadn't disapproved. Compared to the calculating Ryan, he preferred me, the boy he had watched grow up. Hearing his words, I finally spoke my heart. Grandfather, I want to leave the Harrison estate. I want to go out and see the world. He stiffened, but before he could reply, a stir went through the crowd outside. Chloe had arrived on Ryan's arm, a clear statement to everyone in their social circle. They were the perfect couple, and the room immediately filled with congratulations. I lowered my gaze and fell silent. Mr. Harrison's expression flickered through several emotions before he finally came to a decision. I think I understand why you want to leave. Very well. You're a man now with your own mind. In 1 week, I'll have everything arranged for you. My heart pounded in my chest, and I couldn't stop my eyes from welling up. I bowed deeply to the old man. Thank you. In 7 days, I would be free of the Harrison estate, free to find a quiet place without Chloe to await my end. Outside, fireworks exploded, spelling out Ryan's name in the sky. Beneath the glittering display, Chloe leaned against his shoulder. They looked so happy. A fortune in pyrotechnics, a testament to their love, destined to become a legend. I watched the display calmly, her image in my eyes fading with the last of the sparks. I found myself yearning for a life without her. The air itself would feel free. Just 7 more days. The patriarch's birthday had become Chloe's personal showcase of affection. After the party, I said a reluctant goodbye to Mr. Harrison and walked for over 6 hours, not reaching the mansion until 3 in the morning. My feet were blistered and bleeding, and the pain in my back had intensified. I lay on the small cot in the storage room, my head swimming, staring out the barred window at the night sky. I was in too much pain to sleep, so I just counted down the hours until my departure. The door to the storage room creaked open. A figure stumbled in, smelling strongly of alcohol, and pressed down on top of me, her lips finding mine. I tried to push her away but had no strength. When I looked up, I was shocked to see it was Chloe. She was demanding, desperate. Give yourself to me. She gave me no chance to speak, pulling at my clothes. Her lips were like fire in the cold night, almost enough to make me melt. But a sharp, tearing pain shot through my back, jolting me to my senses, and I pushed her off. This was the affection I had craved for 8 lifetimes. But now, I felt nothing but repulsion. In this 9th life, I was just tired. I wanted to be free of her, even if it meant dying. In the dim light of the storage room, her eyes burned with passion as she whispered, Ryan. The name snapped me back to reality. It was like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over my head. She thought I was Ryan, of course. In this world, her love for him was absolute. She could never accept anyone else. And for a moment, I had actually allowed myself to hope. I suppose she was just overjoyed, about to marry the man she loved, and in her drunken state, she had mistaken me for him. She lay down and quickly fell asleep, murmuring Ryan's name. The faint moonlight illuminated the face I had once adored, but my heart felt nothing. Since I had decided to leave, I had no more expectations. I dragged my aching body out of the storage room without a backward glance and curled up on the living room sofa, drifting in and out of sleep. A sudden slap to my face woke me. I looked up into Chloe's furious expression. Why was I in your room? Her eyes blazed with fury, a sign she was about to lose control. Every time she got this angry, she made my life a living hell. I quickly tried to explain. I expected her to lash out without listening, as usual, but this time she was uncharacteristically silent. There were no insults, no punishments. She just said, "Go make breakfast." I managed a bitter smile, washed up, and went to the kitchen. Chloe was pregnant, and she ordered me to cook 4 meals a day for her. It was only because, in my attempts to please her, I had memorized every dish she loved. I never thought she would use that knowledge to humiliate me, but I didn't complain. In 6 more days, I would be gone. Even if I died out there, I would die free. Ryan came into the kitchen, pretending he wanted to help smooth things over. As he watched me work, a cold glint flashed in his eyes. I acted as if I hadn't seen it, calmly stirring the pot of soup. "I'm leaving," I said. "I won't bother you two anymore." Ryan sneered. "Everyone knows you're obsessed with Chloe. You'd never give up that easily." I took a deep breath and slowly turned to face him. "You and Chloe are a match made in heaven. It's destiny. No one can keep you apart. In a few days, I'll be gone for good." Ryan's expression was a mixture of suspicion and disbelief. He glanced towards the living room where Chloe was reading a magazine, and a vicious look crossed his face. "I don't believe you. Not unless you disappear permanently." He shoved me aside and plunged his own hand into the boiling soup, letting out a blood-curdling scream. My face paled as anger and helplessness washed over me. I had already decided to leave her. Why couldn't Ryan just let me go? He had all of Chloe's love, so why did he hate me so much? Chloe rushed into the kitchen. When she saw Ryan's scalded hand, the air seemed to freeze. I just stood there, shaking my head in disbelief. Ryan clutched his bright red arm, his face a mask of sorrow. Chloe, I was just trying to help Ethan. I had no idea he hated me this much. I can't stay here and look after you. He'll kill me sooner or later. He pushed her away and stumbled towards the door. Chloe rushed to stop him, then turned to me, her eyes filled with rage and disappointment. Why are you always trying to hurt Ryan? What has he ever done to you? If you have a problem, take it up with me. My face was a mask of misery as I lowered my head. If I told you I didn't do it, would you believe me? She laughed, a harsh, angry sound. So you have the nerve to hurt him, but not to admit it? Her tone turned icy. It seems I've been too soft on you all these years, letting you get away with one thing after another. Did you really think grandfather could protect you from this? Seeing Ryan's burn, Chloe's heart broke, and tears streamed down her face. She rushed him to the hospital, renting out an entire floor and paying a fortune to have the best specialists in New York attend to him. It was a minor burn, but you would think it was the end of the world. The entire hospital was on high alert, terrified of making a single mistake. Everyone who saw it was envious of Ryan for having a fiancée who cared so deeply for him. While Ryan was in the operating room, Chloe forced me to kneel in the hallway outside. If anything happens to him, she hissed, I'll make you pay with your life. I could feel her hatred, a bitter taste filling my mouth, but I didn't argue. I knew that even if I had proof, she wouldn't believe me. A doctor emerged from the OR and informed Chloe that the burn was severe and would require a skin graft. When she heard how serious it was, she nearly fainted, her glare on me turning murderous. Look what you've done. Why can't you just leave Ryan alone? She turned to the doctor. Use his skin for the graft, and don't use any anesthesia. I want him to feel Ryan's pain, so he'll remember this lesson for the rest of his life. Ignoring my struggles, they forced me onto a gurney. As the surgeon began slicing skin from my thigh, piece by piece, my agonized screams filled the room. For 2 hours it continued, until there was no undamaged skin left on my thighs. The pain was unbearable, and eventually, I lost consciousness. After the surgery, Chloe stayed at the hospital to personally care for Ryan. She fed him every meal herself, even testing the temperature of his water before letting him drink. Her devotion was the talk of the hospital. Every nurse and doctor who saw them was filled with envy. Mr. Cole is so lucky, they'd say, to have a woman like Ms. Harrison. You should have seen how worried she was. It's true love. Hearing their praise, Ryan's face glowed with happiness, but his tone was concerned. Chloe, Ethan is still just a kid. I don't blame him. Please, don't punish him anymore. Chloe took his hand, her heart swelling with emotion. Ryan, you're too kind. That's why he keeps hurting you. If I don't teach him a lesson this time, what's to stop him from doing it again? The more magnanimously Ryan pleaded for me, the more furious Chloe became, her resolve to punish me hardening. As she left, the concern vanished from Ryan's face. He stared out the window, his eyes turning cold and dark. Chloe kicked open the door to my room, her face a mask of ice. Ethan Harrison, you listen to me. The room was empty. Her voice died in her throat as she turned to a nearby nurse, her expression baffled. Where is he? When the nurse told her I had just been discharged, a cold sneer spread across Chloe's face. So, he knew he'd gone too far and decided to run? This time, she thought, I'll make his life a living hell. Otherwise, he'll just keep trying to hurt Ryan. Convinced I had fled out of guilt, Chloe flew into a rage and ordered a full-scale search for me. Meanwhile, I was dragging my battered body through the streets of New York. The wounds on my back and the raw flesh of my thighs split open with every step. I didn't care. I just had to escape this hell. I never wanted to see Chloe again. Even when I was innocent, all that awaited me was a brutal death. The summer heat was suffocating, like a steam room, and my vision swam with fiery spots. I wandered aimlessly, leaving a trail of bloody footprints on the pavement. The metallic smell of blood made passers-by cover their noses. I didn't even notice, my mind made up. Dying out here was better than living by her side. But the Harrison family's men found me quickly. Chloe and a team of bodyguards cornered me on an overpass. My face went white. I could only manage a bitter smile. Still trying to run? Chloe advanced on me, her eyes blazing. Ryan is so kind, and you are so cruel. Did you think if you got rid of him, I would ever accept you? Ethan Harrison, you disgust me. If I had known what a venomous creature you were, I would have left you to rot in that orphanage." I knew she hated me, but her words still felt like a knife twisting in my heart. I leaned against the railing, all the fight draining out of me. I took one last look at her, the woman I had loved through 8 lifetimes without regret. Now all she felt for me was overwhelming hatred. I had given up. I was ready to die quietly. Why wouldn't fate just let me go? I felt like my destiny was caught in an iron grip, impossible to escape. A profound despair washed over me. I knew that just surviving would only lead to more pain. "Chloe," I said, my voice hollow, "thank you for taking care of me all these years. And for the last time, I did not hurt Ryan. I just want to leave you, forever." And with that, under her horrified gaze, I threw myself from the overpass. "No!" Just before I fell, I thought I saw a flash of agony on her face. As luck would have it, I landed on an awning below. I didn't die, but I was badly injured. I lay in a hospital bed, the smell of antiseptic filling my nostrils, staring blankly at the clouds outside the window, feeling nothing at all. I felt like a puppet on a string, utterly hopeless. Was it impossible for me to even die? I was so tired of being a pawn in their story. All I wanted was freedom, even if only for a single day. The image of Chloe's anguished face as I jumped replayed in my mind, feeling as unreal as a dream. In the past, I might have clung to that image as a sliver of hope, a sign that she could be won over. But I knew the truth. They were the hero and heroine. They were destined to be together. And their wedding day would be the day I died. I had no more illusions about the future. I couldn't escape the hospital, and I didn't care what punishment she had in store for me. I was going to die anyway. I might as well wait for it in peace. When Chloe came to my room and saw my emaciated face, the furious words she had prepared died in her throat. Maybe she remembered the quiet warmth of the times we'd spent together when I was in a coma. Or maybe she remembered my desperate, final words on the bridge. She just said, "Get some rest," and left. I was stunned. I had been bracing myself for some new, cruel punishment. I had imagined countless scenarios, but her simply walking away wasn't one of them. I didn't dwell on it. I was alive now, but death was still coming. Chloe returned to Ryan's room next door. Facing his intense gaze, she looked slightly uncomfortable. "Ethan is badly hurt," she said. "He's young, he makes mistakes. Let's just drop it." Ryan's expression tightened, and he instinctively wanted to press the issue, but seeing the impatience in her eyes, he held his tongue. He put on a gentle, understanding face. "Chloe, you're right. Ethan just misunderstands me. If we're kind to him, I'm sure he'll come around." Chloe was deeply moved. "Ryan, I love you. I'll always love you." Ryan gently patted her back, his eyes flashing with a mad jealousy, but his voice was tender. "I love you too." Chloe was going soft on me? That was unacceptable. Ryan would never allow anyone to steal even a fraction of her affection. The pity she showed me sparked a powerful sense of alarm in him. He couldn't let this continue. He had to find a way to get rid of me for good. For the next 2 days, Chloe split her time between Ryan's room and mine. Ryan didn't act jealous. In fact, he came to see me himself. I knew he was a hypocrite, and I knew my fate was sealed, so I just closed my eyes and ignored him. Several times, Chloe looked ready to explode at my silence, but then she would look at my battered body and restrain herself. On the day I was discharged, she actually let me ride in the same car with her, a rare occurrence. I had no power to refuse, so I obediently sat in the Maybach, watching the city blur past, thinking that in just 2 days, I would finally be free. I didn't know when she and Ryan would get married, only that once I left, I would live each day as it came. When we got back to the mansion, she had a proper guest room prepared for me and told me to move out of the storage room. I didn't refuse. Angering her now would only bring me more pain. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the stars, my mind a complete blank. The welts on my back and the raw wounds on my thighs were a constant reminder that I was still in hell, every moment in agony. I hadn't heard from Mr. Harrison yet, so all I could do was endure. I don't know when she came in, but I opened my eyes and she was there, watching me silently. In the dim light, I looked at her, and for a moment, it felt like old times. She remembered the determination in my eyes as I jumped, the despair in my voice. She thought about everything she had done to me recently and realized she might have truly hurt me. She had come to my room hoping to clear the air. "Ethan," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "can you stop liking me? Can we just be a normal aunt and nephew?" She hesitated, then reached out and gently stroked my hair. I flinched at her touch, but I could feel a flicker of sincerity from her. My eyes welled up as I nodded. She smiled, a genuine smile that reminded me of the day she first held me when I was 6 years old. I closed my eyes, thinking to myself, Just 2 more days and I can leave. We were both lost in our own thoughts, wrapped in a memory of a happier time. Suddenly, the door swung open. We both turned to see Ryan standing there, his face pale. Chloe froze for a second, panic flashing in her eyes, before she shoved me to the floor and ran after him. I lay on the floor, the searing pain of my reopened wounds shooting through me as blood pooled on the hardwood. I slowly picked myself up and watched through the window as their figures disappeared into the night. Her attitude towards me had softened. If we could just maintain this fragile peace, maybe I wouldn't have to suffer anymore. But her love for Ryan was unshakable. The moment they married, I would still die. I got back into bed, lying on my side as if savoring the last moments of peace before my execution. I longed for the day I could escape. Even a single second of freedom would be worth it. For once, I didn't have any nightmares, sleeping soundly until morning. I was drifting in a haze when my body was violently yanked upright, the pain shocking me fully awake. Chloe was standing over me, her face a mask of ice, her eyes boring into mine. A wave of terror washed over me. It felt just like the previous 8 lives, right before she killed me. This was the terrifying Chloe I knew. Why did you have to provoke him? He left, upset, and got into a car accident. He's in the hospital, dying. She grabbed me by the throat, shaking me violently. You have the same blood type. Get to the hospital now and give him a transfusion. She didn't give me a chance to speak, just dragged me to the car and sped off, running dozens of red lights. I was thrown around the back seat like a rag doll the entire way. I couldn't understand it. Just last night, she had wanted to make peace. How could she become this unhinged overnight? The heroine of this novel was truly impossible to predict. No matter what happened, it was always my fault. Doctor, they have the same blood type. Save him. Chloe's eyes were red as she glared at me. You're the reason he's bleeding out. If he dies, I'll kill you myself. They strapped me to a bed, but after examining me, the doctor hesitated. Ms. Harrison, Ethan is extremely weak. Taking too much blood could be fatal. Given his condition, we should really wait for the blood bank to— Don't wait. Chloe cut him off. He owes this to Ryan. Take the blood. If he dies, you won't be held responsible. I stared at her in disbelief. Did she really want me to die that badly? I had already given up on her. I just wanted to leave. Why was the outcome always the same? I opened my mouth to protest, but when I met her cold, merciless gaze, I fell silent. Go ahead, I whispered to the doctor. It's fine. I closed my eyes, my heart twisting in agony. I knew it was useless to resist. Under Chloe's orders, the doctor drew 800 cubic centimeters of my blood, but she worried it wasn't enough and ordered him to take more. My body started to shake, and my vision filled with a blinding white light. Felt like I was looking into the afterlife. The doctor protested that any more would kill me, but Chloe insisted. My vitals crashed, my heart rate slowed to a crawl, and my eyes fluttered shut. The next day, after emergency resuscitation, I found I was still alive. When I woke up, Chloe was, for once, sitting by my bedside. I didn't look at her. I just stared out the window. Any flicker of gratitude I might have felt for her recent kindness had been extinguished the moment she forced them to drain me of my blood. No matter what I did, the end result was always death. Chloe's face was cold, but her voice was surprisingly soft. Ryan is out of danger. This was your fault, but you've paid the price. Let's just consider the matter settled. I stared blankly at the ceiling. She took my face in her hands, her tone forceful. To make it up to Ryan, I've decided we should get married as soon as possible. The wedding is tomorrow. I stared at her, shocked. So soon? Tomorrow was the day Mr. Harrison had arranged for me to leave. If she and Ryan got married, I would die instantly. She gave me no room to argue. Ryan wants you to be his best man. He wants you to witness our love. I've already brought your suit to the hospital. Tomorrow, you'll get dressed and come straight to the ceremony. With that, she stood up and left. A short while later, her assistant arrived with a few suits and went over the arrangements with me. I didn't listen to a word she said. A fierce defiance burned within me. Just then, Mr. Harrison called. He told me everything was arranged for my departure the next day. I clutched the phone, my mind racing. Should I still go? The wedding would likely be over before my plane even took off. I would probably just die mid-flight. But when I thought of the agony I had endured through 9 lifetimes, my resolve hardened. The next day, everything was in place. Chloe called to warn me not to cause a scene at the wedding, or she would make me disappear. Don't worry, Chloe, I said calmly. I won't. My calm reply seemed to surprise her, and she was silent for a moment. She felt like something about me had changed. Good. Now hurry up and get over here. She didn't think any more of it and hung up. With the wedding underway, Most of the security detail was focused on the venue to prevent me from making a scene, leaving the hospital less guarded. I slipped out of the hospital easily and got into the car Mr. Harrison had arranged. Faster! I urged the driver as we sped towards JFK. The airport was just ahead, the open sky above it. On the verge of freedom, I felt a strange sense of calm, as if I could feel death approaching. I glanced one last time in the direction of the wedding, then picked up my simple canvas bag and boarded the plane. Even 1 second of freedom was still freedom. Chloe, I'm done trying to win you over. Let's never see each other again. Everyone in their circle knew how much Chloe loved Ryan. Dressed in a bespoke suit, Ryan stood outside greeting guests, a blissful smile on his face. The car accident had successfully pressured Chloe into marrying him. It was probably the most profitable scheme he'd ever pulled. As Chloe's soon-to-be husband, he was the envy of everyone they knew. The ceremony was about to start, and he was already lost in daydreams of his future with her. He would finally be an official part of the Harrison family, no longer subject to the old man's disapproval. Chloe, are you feeling all right? Ryan noticed she was distracted, her gaze constantly drifting towards the entrance. He knew who she was waiting for, and it infuriated him, but he didn't dare let it show. For years, he had carefully cultivated the image of a kind and understanding partner to win her over. Seeing her so lost in thought at this critical moment made his blood boil with resentment. Ethan probably isn't ready to be the best man, Ryan said, feigning nonchalance. I was just making a suggestion. It's fine if he doesn't come. He took her hand, his voice a soothing balm. I'll be his uncle soon. I'll make sure we get along. Chloe was agitated, her eyes darting in the direction of the hospital. Over an hour had passed. The drive from the hospital to the chapel was 20 minutes at most, yet I still hadn't shown up. For some reason, her mind drifted back to my 18th birthday, the night she found her lingerie hidden in my room and had punished me so severely. I had knelt before her then, my face bloody, pleading with her, telling her that I had to win her over or I would die. She had dismissed it as a pathetic excuse, a ploy for sympathy. Ever since discovering my unnatural feelings, she had done everything in her power to crush them, using her cold cruelty to extinguish my affection. It was one of the reasons she was so eager to marry Ryan. She had assumed I wouldn't give up so easily, that I would surely cause a scene at the wedding. That's why she had forced me to be the best man, to make me watch her marry another man and finally crush any hope I had left. She had even hired extra security just to keep me in line. But all this time had passed, and there was no sign of me. She thought she would be relieved that I had finally gotten the message, but she felt no joy at all. She couldn't even force a smile for Ryan. Go to the hospital, she snapped into her phone. His own aunt is getting married. How dare he hide away? She spoke to her assistant, her voice like ice. Tell him he must be at this wedding, or he is out of the Harrison family for good. She was sure the threat would be enough to make me submit. The assistant hurried off. Seeing that Chloe was still preoccupied with me, Ryan's jealousy flared, his eyes filled with resentment. Chloe, this is our day. All of our guests are here. We should go inside. We're keeping everyone waiting. He looked utterly dejected. She wanted to argue, but seeing the pain on his face, she relented and nodded. As they walked into the chapel, they were met with a wave of applause. With all their guests as witnesses, the ceremony began. Ryan was flushed with excitement, his eyes full of adoration as he gazed at the woman before him. Chloe, on the other hand, wore a forced smile. Her mind was in turmoil, and the happy chatter of the guests felt like a deafening roar. There was still no word from her assistant about me. When the officiant asked Ryan if he would take Chloe to be his wife, to have and to hold for the rest of his life, he agreed without a moment's hesitation. But when the officiant turned to Chloe and asked her the same question, she said nothing. The guests waited, holding their breath. Chloe, Ryan whispered, his voice tight with anxiety, seeing her lost in thought. If this wedding fell apart, he would be a laughingstock, a humiliation he couldn't bear. Chloe's expression wavered. She saw the pleading in his eyes and opened her mouth to say yes, but for some reason, all she could see was my face, hollow and full of despair. I had told her that if she married him, I would die. She clenched her fists, her eyes darting once more to the chapel doors, her face a storm of conflicting emotions. With the city's elite watching, with the man she loved pleading, she knew all she had to do was say, I do, and it would all be over. But the words wouldn't come. It felt as if an invisible hand was clamped over her mouth. After a few minutes of silent struggle, she made a decision, choosing to follow her gut. She looked at Ryan apologetically. Postpone the wedding. She announced the wedding was postponed, leaving the guests in stunned silence. She didn't care. She just turned and walked away. Ryan dug his nails into his palms, his face flushed with suppressed rage. A bitter resentment swelled in his chest. They were so close. One more word and he would have been her husband. Why would she stop it now? He couldn't contain his anger any longer and grabbed her arm. Chloe, do you have any idea what you're doing? Our wedding has nothing to do with Ethan. He ran away on purpose to ruin this. We knew he might. Chloe, I'm begging you. Let's just finish the ceremony. We can go find him right after. I'll get on my knees and apologize to him if that's what you want. She looked at him, her heart aching with guilt. Ryan, this was all so rushed anyway. Let's wait a little while and have a wedding 10 times more magnificent than this one, okay? Ethan, he can be so extreme. I promised his parents I would look after him. I can't let anything happen to him. She had rushed into this wedding to give Ryan the security he deserved, but also to finally sever my attachment to her. But the image of my face as I jumped from that bridge, so full of despair, was burned into her memory. Every time she thought of it, a sense of dread washed over her. She had a terrible feeling that if she went through with the wedding, something awful would happen. Chloe, Ryan's voice cracked. Are you really going to throw away everything we have for that bastard? Seeing she was resolute, Ryan finally snapped, his handsome features twisting into an ugly snarl. Who the hell is he? Just some piece of trash the Harrisons took in. What right does he have to ruin my wedding? If he's got any nerve, he'll just die out there and never come back. A tremor ran through her. She stared at him in disbelief. She had always seen him as the epitome of grace and charm, but the look on his face now was more terrifying than anything she had ever seen on mine. Realizing his mistake, Ryan grabbed her hand, his voice pleading again. Chloe, I'm sorry, I was just upset. I shouldn't have said that, but Ethan is an adult. He'll be fine. Deeply disappointed by his outburst, Chloe was now certain she had made the right decision. She turned and walked away. Ryan stood frozen for a moment, his face a mask of fury. Ethan Harrison, he seethed. You just wait. A murderous rage filled his heart. He wanted to tear me limb from limb. Chloe left the chapel and drove to the hospital as fast as she could. When she learned I had been discharged, she rushed straight to the mansion. She assumed I had nowhere else to go. But after searching the entire estate, she couldn't find any sign of me. She rubbed her temples and turned to her assistant. Have someone from the garage deliver a sports car to the old family home. And go to the store and buy that watch I was looking at. Send it there too. She was sure that if I wasn't at the main house, I must have gone to my grandfather's. But a few minutes later, her assistant called back. He's not at the old residence, Miss Harrison. He went to the airport. The color drained from Chloe's face. She shot to her feet. The airport? What for? Get him and bring him back here. Does he think he can just run away from me? She was furious. She thought I was just throwing a tantrum, and if she weren't worried about my fragile health, she would have disciplined me severely. Her assistant's voice was grim. Ms. Harrison, we checked. His flight took off 2 hours ago. We don't know its destination. It seems someone deliberately concealed his travel plans. The news hit her like a lightning bolt, followed by a wave of pure rage. He's defying me. He actually dared to leave. A sense of panic began to set in. For the first time, she felt like she was losing control. After a full day of searching, using every resource the Harrison family had at its disposal, they found nothing. It was then that she finally realized this wasn't just another tantrum. I was really gone. I don't care what it costs. Find him, she roared at her assistant, her usual composure completely gone. She had a sinking feeling that this time, she might have lost me for good. She had only wanted to crush my inappropriate feelings for her. She had never wanted me to actually leave. So why did she feel so empty inside? Why was there a sharp, stabbing pain in her chest? The sun was setting over a small town in Arizona. I sat in a wicker chair on the side of a mountain, watching the colors paint the sky. I hadn't followed Mr. Harrison's plan for me to study design abroad. Instead, I had changed flights at the airport and flown to this remote town, Sedona. The entire time, from the moment I boarded the plane, I had been breathing the air of freedom, preparing myself for death. According to the novel's plot, the moment Chloe and Ryan were married, I was supposed to simply cease to exist. But I had waited for 2 days, and death never came. Somehow I was still here. I had always wanted to find a place with a breeze, to sit on a mountaintop and watch the sunset as I lived out my final days. Here there was no love, no hate. There was only the wind. I didn't know that Chloe had postponed the wedding, but it didn't matter. They were the hero and heroine. No matter what obstacles they faced, they would end up together eventually. And that would be the day I died. Before that happened, I wanted to be free, even if only for a moment. Mr. Harrison had given me a credit card with more money on it than I could ever spend, so at least I didn't have to worry about practical matters. I had tagged along with a group of art students on a trip to the town. Seeing their young, carefree faces, I felt a pang of envy. If my life hadn't been consumed by the mission to win over Chloe, maybe I could have been happy like them. I didn't join their group. Instead, I rented a small house on the mountainside, bought a small plot of land with a beautiful view, and wrote out my will. I left instructions and enough money for the landlord to have me buried there when the time came. I avoided contact with everyone, cut myself off from all news of the outside world, and spent my days sitting in that wicker chair, just looking at the view, as if trying to make up for years of a life unlived. I had lived 9 lives for her. This last one would be for me. But after 2 weeks, death still hadn't come. And against all odds, I found myself growing attached to this world. Chloe and Ryan were a match made in heaven. Nothing could keep them apart. So why wasn't I dead? I had been at peace with my fate, but now, a small, stubborn part of me didn't want to let go. In this little house on the mountainside, my dead heart began to beat again, and a flicker of a will to live ignited within me. 3 more days passed, and I braced myself once more for the end. Chloe was a nightmare I couldn't escape, even here. But as the days passed, the nightmares began to fade, and I slowly started to accept my strange, borrowed time. I realized that just waiting was a waste. Even if I was going to die in the next second, I should live freely until then. So, in addition to my morning ritual on the mountainside, I started going down to watch the art students sketch. One evening, I came home to find that the house next door had a new tenant. Peeking over the low fence, I saw a tall girl on a swing, her posture radiating a do not disturb aura. She noticed me too, but showed no interest in talking. Apparently, the sunset was far more captivating. I didn't give it a second thought. As a man on death row, I had no expectations of anyone or anything. I bought an easel and some paints and began to sketch the world as I saw it. The days passed, and every time I went out, I would see the girl next door on her swing. She seemed distant, so I didn't bother her. I sensed a familiar energy from her, the same walled-off feeling I had when I first arrived here. Sometimes I wondered what her story was, but then I would just laugh at myself. Who was I to be curious about anyone else's life? It was another bright, sunny day. I picked up my easel, ready to head down the mountain. The moment I opened the door, a bone-chilling cold washed over me. Chloe was standing on my doorstep, her eyes blazing with fury. The sunny sky, the vibrant landscape, it all turned to ash the moment I saw her. My paradise had become hell again. She was my own personal demon. The color drained from my face, and I instinctively took a step back. 9 lives, 8 deaths, every single one at her hands. The trauma was deeply ingrained. "Are you done with your little game?" she sneered. It had taken all of her resources, but she had finally found me, dropping everything to fly to Sedona. She had expected me to be overjoyed to see her, that my little rebellion would be over. But that wasn't the look on my face. The raw terror and loathing in my eyes when I saw her was like a dagger to her heart. Her face darkened, her anger boiling over as she slapped me hard across the face. "I see I've been far too lenient with you." At that moment, all the resentment from my 8 deaths at her hands came rushing to the surface. In this 9th life, I had nothing left to lose. Death held no fear for me anymore. A flicker of defiance ignited in my eyes. I grabbed her wrist and shoved her away. She stumbled, her face contorting with rage. "You dare to defy me?" I almost had to laugh. I suddenly realized that once I had given up on her, once I had let go of all hope, none of it mattered anymore. No matter what I did, the end result was death. So why not fight back? I took a deep breath, my eyes fixing on the morning glories swaying on the fence. I ignored her murderous glare, my voice laced with bitter irony. "Chloe, do you remember what you promised me? That day at the orphanage?" She flinched, her gaze faltering. "After my parents died in that car crash, I was sent to an orphanage. She had defied her entire family to bring me home. The sun was setting that day, bathing her in a golden light. She had stroked my hair, a gentle smile on her face, and said, 'It's okay, Ethan, I'm your family now. I'll never let anyone hurt you.' And for years, she had kept that promise. She had cared for me, loved me, but somewhere along the way, everything had changed. The little boy who used to run to her for comfort had become, in her eyes, a disgusting animal, incapable of doing anything right. The bitter smile on my face and the deadness in my eyes seemed to pierce her to the core. Her lips trembled, and her voice softened. "Ethan, come home. I postponed the wedding with Ryan because of you. Please, stop this. Stop this." I shook my head, my expression cold. "You told me I was disgusting. You told me to get as far away as possible. I did what you wanted. I left so I wouldn't bother you and Ryan anymore. How is that me making a scene? You talk about being my aunt, But what kind of aunt whips her nephew until he's bloody, forces him to kneel for days on end, drains him of blood when he's already on the verge of collapse? You tell me who would want an aunt like that? I'm not going back with you. I would rather die here than set foot in that hell you call a home ever again. My words were like daggers, and each one found its mark. She stared at me, her face a mask of disbelief. What did she see in my eyes? A deep, festering resentment, ugly and poisonous. In her mind, she had done nothing wrong. She had raised me, given me her time and affection, and this was how I repaid her. A harsh, angry laugh escaped her lips, her eyes turning glacial. She had never expected such fierce resistance from me. Felt like a slap in the face. For a woman like her, accustomed to getting her way in everything, it was an insult she could not tolerate. She had postponed her wedding for me, become a laughingstock, abandoned everything to come find me. She had expected me to come home quietly, but my words had hit her like a physical blow. I'll say this one last time. Come home with me. I can overlook your previous behavior. But if you continue to defy me, I will not be so forgiving. She fought to control her rage, her eyes boring into mine, each word a threat. I didn't answer her. I just watched the sun dip below the horizon, a silent reminder that all life must end. Whether I went back with her or not, my fate was the same. I looked at the woman who had been the cause of my death in 8 lifetimes, and I felt none of the love or attachment I once had. I'm not going back with you, I said, my voice flat. I'd rather die here. My answer finally broke her control. Her face contorted with rage, her eyes blazing. What did you say? She raised her hand to strike me, but as our eyes met, her fury seemed to evaporate. In my eyes, she saw not defiance, but a despair so deep it was fearless. She saw relief. There's a limit to my patience, she said, her voice dangerously low. It seems my leniency has made you reckless. It's time you learned some discipline. She turned and walked away, and 2 of her bodyguards rushed in and seized me. I didn't fight back. I knew it was pointless. I glanced back at the small house, thinking of the unfinished painting inside, a pang of regret in my chest. I had been here for a month of true freedom. It was more than I could have hoped for. As they led me away, I couldn't help but look towards the house next door. I thought I saw a pair of eyes watching from the window, the quiet girl on the swing. I regretted never asking her name. I was taken back to the mansion and thrown into the storage room, where I was left without food for 3 days. She still thought I was just throwing a tantrum. Maybe it was because of that incident with her lingerie when I was 18, or the countless times I had debased myself trying to win her over, that she had come to believe everything I did was just a desperate plea for her attention. Before she left me in darkness, she stood in the doorway, looking down at me curled in the corner, her voice dripping with contempt. Whatever you're planning, I won't tolerate it, and I will never accept your disgusting feelings. You can stay in here and think about what you've done. When you're ready to behave, I'll let you out. The door slammed shut, plunging me into darkness. This time, I didn't scream or beg. I just lay on the cold floor and closed my eyes. Being back in this hell didn't scare me anymore. I simply waited for the inevitable. In the living room, Chloe and Ryan were once again planning their wedding. To make up for the last time, she had increased the budget tenfold. They were the hero and heroine, after all. Nothing would keep them apart for long. Chloe pretended to listen, but her thoughts were on the storage room. A week had passed, and I still hadn't broken. It infuriated her. Ryan was in the middle of discussing floral arrangements when they heard footsteps approaching. Chloe tensed, turning to her assistant as he entered the room. Has he admitted he was wrong? The assistant's face was grim. He kept his head down. Ms. Harrison, something's happened to the young master. At the hospital, Chloe tore into the doctors, furious that my condition wasn't improving. I had been revived several times, but I remained unconscious. What is going on? She demanded. The attending physician told her the truth. I had been starved for a week. If her assistant hadn't found me, I would be dead. They had me on an 4 drip, but my condition wasn't improving. The main problem, the doctor explained, was that I had no will to live. The color drained from her face, a flicker of panic in her eyes. She remembered our conversation in Sedona, and a sharp pain lanced through her chest. I would rather die than submit to her. She felt control slipping through her fingers. The obedient boy she had raised was now using death as a form of protest. She stared at my ashen face, a look of confusion in her eyes. She couldn't believe I would go this far, that I would try to die just to stop her wedding. Do you think this will make me give in to you? She whispered. Her confusion quickly turned to rage. Ryan and I are meant to be. Nothing in this world will stop us from getting married. If you want to lie there and die, then fine. She stormed out of the room and gave the order to proceed with the wedding preparations. She would use the wedding to force me to wake up. She would marry Ryan right in front of me. A wedding 10 times more lavish than the last was underway. It was Ryan's moment to shine. He stood at the entrance to the chapel, basking in the envious stares of the guests, his heart pounding with excitement. He had been playing the part of the gentle, supportive fiancé perfectly, even urging Chloe to be more understanding towards me. His performance had been flawless. The ceremony went off without a hitch, much more smoothly than the last time. Finally, they reached the vows. Ryan, naturally, said, "I do," without hesitation. When it was Chloe's turn, the entire room held its breath. This was the exact moment she had called everything off last time, making Ryan the butt of every joke in their circle. "Do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to love and to cherish, in sickness and in health, for as long as you both shall live?" The officiant's words echoed through the silent chapel, the tension palpable. All eyes were on Chloe. Ryan's fists were clenched, sweat trickling down his forehead. He had worked for years for this moment, for those two simple words. Chloe opened her mouth to speak, but for some reason, my words echoed in her mind. "The day you get married is the day I die." She had dismissed it as melodrama at the time, but now, a chilling premonition gripped her. She had the strangest feeling that if she said those words, she would lose me forever. As she looked out at the expectant faces, her heart seized with a sudden, inexplicable panic. Her gaze drifted in the direction of the hospital. To be honest, she wasn't even sure why she was going through with this. When she had learned I was trying to die, she had been so blinded by rage that she had rushed into this wedding, hoping it would shock me back to my senses. She had been so sure that my obsession with her would compel me to stop her, that I would rush in and cause a scene. But the ceremony was almost over, and there had been nothing. Could it be true? Was I really dying? Her expression shifted, and right there, in front of everyone, she pulled out her phone and called her assistant. Her assistant had been stationed at the hospital to stop me from interfering and to call my bluff. But when he told her that not only had I not woken up, but I had gone into cardiac arrest and was being rushed into emergency surgery, her world shattered. A panic unlike anything she had ever known seized her. She was really going to lose me. How could this be happening? She didn't care about the wedding, about the guests, about any of it. She turned and ran out of the chapel. "Chloe!" Ryan's anguished voice called after her, his face a mask of pain. "Are you doing this again? Are you leaving me at the altar for him again?" A sharp pain went through her heart. She wanted to run to him, to hold him, but she couldn't. She didn't answer, just kept running, heading for the hospital. Ryan's face was ashen. The whispers of the guests were like flames, scorching him. He had been left at the altar again. He was a joke. He stared after her, his eyes filled with a bottomless hatred. In the hospital room, Chloe stared at me, fresh out of surgery, her expression unreadable. I turned my head and looked out the window. I didn't want to talk to her. As the wedding had reached its climax, I had truly felt myself slipping away. I had seen death beckoning. It was a shame I never finished my painting or learned the name of the girl on the swing. But after 9 lifetimes in this world, I was done trying to win anyone over. The memories of my 8 brutal deaths flashed through my mind. A clean end would have been a mercy. Chloe's face was grim, but when she saw the utter lifelessness in my eyes, she faltered, falling into a long silence. She looked lost. I had changed. I was no longer her obedient little boy, no longer a pawn she could move at will. She had thought that by bringing me back, she could turn back time, but she had been terribly mistaken. I truly wanted to die. I couldn't even stand to look at her. Chloe was in turmoil. All she had wanted was to make me understand that we could never be together, that she would always love Ryan. She thought that once the wedding was over, I would finally give up and go back to being her compliant nephew. Just like when she first brought me home from the orphanage, another person to bring a little warmth to the cold, empty mansion. My continued silence pushed her to the breaking point. She made a decision. If I wanted to leave so badly, then I could go. Just as she was about to speak, they heard footsteps. Ryan walked in. He wasn't hysterical about the postponed wedding. Instead, he came to my bedside, looking like he wanted to say something. "Chloe, I'd like to speak with Ethan alone." "Ryan, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. It has nothing to do with Ethan. It was a matter of life and death. I couldn't just ignore it." "It's okay," Ryan said, taking her hand, his voice gentle. "You're carrying our child. Of course I trust you." His understanding only made her feel more guilty. "What is it?" she asked, seeing the troubled look on his face. She felt his forehead. "Are you feeling all right?" Ryan's expression shifted, his eyes darting between me and Chloe. Realizing he wanted to talk, she led him out into the hallway. At first, he denied anything was wrong, but under her insistent questioning, he produced a bank statement. She didn't understand at first, but after he explained it to her, her face contorted with rage. It was a record of a wire transfer from my account to one of the doctors. Ryan claimed I had paid the doctor to help me fake my death in order to ruin the wedding. Her eyes red with fury, Chloe stormed back into the room and hauled me out of bed. And to think I was worried about you. This is how you repay me. She threw the papers at my face. The sharp edge of the paper cut my cheek, and a drop of blood fell onto my hospital gown, blooming like a crimson flower. I looked up, my eyes falling on the statement. A wave of despair washed over me. Even though I had given up on her, her unwavering faith in Ryan, her instant willingness to believe the worst of me, still felt like a dull blade twisting in my gut. If she had stopped to think for even a second, she would have realized I had been locked in her storage room. How could I have possibly made a wire transfer? But she believed him anyway. This was their epic love story, after all. There was no room for anyone else. "Don't you have anything to say for yourself?" she screamed, grabbing me by the collar of my gown. I wiped the blood from my lip, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Why bother? You'll believe whatever you want to believe anyway. Ethan Harrison, I raised you for more than 10 years. Is this how you repay me? I took you in when you had nothing. I gave you a home. I gave you everything. And what did you do? You developed these sick feelings for me, and you've done nothing but try to destroy my happiness. You are the biggest disappointment of my life. You think because grandfather has a soft spot for you, I won't touch you? Let me make something clear. Everything you have because I gave it to you, and I can take it all away." Her voice was ice, all traces of her earlier guilt gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated hatred. If there was a hell on earth, she was its queen. I was taken back to the mansion and locked in the storage room. To make me understand that everything I had was a gift from her, she took it all away, leaving me with nothing but my life, and barely that. I had known this was coming. I had known since she dragged me away from Sedona, but I refused to bow my head. I would face this standing. My defiance only fueled her rage. She gave me barely enough food to survive. In the sweltering summer heat, she had the air conditioning removed from the storage room, letting the temperature climb to over 100 degrees. "You were an orphan with nothing," she sneered before she left me. "I gave you everything. Since you're so ungrateful, you can go back to having nothing. Even if you begged me for forgiveness now, I would never grant it." She stared into my eyes, searching for any sign of regret or fear. Even a flicker would have been enough to justify the risk she was taking by locking me away like this. But my cold indifference only enraged her further. The staff thought she had gone mad, that her cruelty was unnecessary. But even she didn't know why she was so obsessed with breaking me, why she was neglecting her company, and even Ryan just to see me bend. Every day, she would come and ask if I was ready to submit. And every day, the answer was the same. I would rather die. Through the small window, she could see me lying on the cot, staring blankly at the ceiling like a zombie. The sight only fueled her rage. "Keep him in there," she would snap. "Let's see how long his little tantrum lasts." She still thought this was all just a game. Against the power of the Harrison family, I was helpless. In this ninth life, my silent wait for death was my final act of rebellion. I was so tired of this. All I wanted was to get away, to find a quiet place to die in peace. Why was such a simple wish so impossible to achieve? In this world, it felt like some invisible force had me by the throat, dragging me down into an endless despair. That night, after 2 weeks of captivity, a violent thunderstorm raged outside. Each flash of lightning illuminated my pale face in the darkness of my cell. I sat up and looked out at the storm. Then, I called out to the assistant standing guard outside my door. I was wrong. The assistant was so relieved he almost cried. "I'll call Ms. Harrison right away. Someone, get a doctor." As soon as she heard I had finally broken, Chloe rushed back to the mansion. The rain was so heavy the driver could barely see the road, but she insisted they press on. Ryan sat beside her, carefully avoiding my name, steering the conversation back to their wedding. Despite being left at the altar twice, becoming the laughingstock of their social circle, he showed no anger. Chloe stared out at the rain, only half listening to Ryan's suggestions, her mind already at the mansion. "What did you say?" She was in a surprisingly good mood. For weeks, she had felt like she was carrying a crushing weight, unable to focus on anything. He had to repeat himself several times before she responded. Seeing her so distracted, a silent fury burned in Ryan's heart. He hated me. I had ruined his wedding twice, and now Chloe's feelings for me had become complicated. She no longer revolved around him. Even when they were in bed together, she would talk about me. He couldn't stand it. It's nothing, he said smoothly. Since Ethan has admitted he was wrong, I'll be sure to treat him well from now on. I don't want any more conflict. Chloe nodded and sighed. I wish Ethan were as understanding as you. The car pulled up to the mansion. Despite the pouring rain and her pregnancy, Chloe rushed inside, eager to see me. Just as she entered, there was a sickening thud. A body had fallen from the roof, landing on the stone patio right in front of her. She looked down. It was me. My blood mingled with the rain, staining the decorative pond a deep crimson. She stood frozen, the rain soaking her to the bone. I had already been rushed to the hospital, my fate uncertain, but she was still lost in a state of shock. Her eyes were wide with shock and confusion, unable to process what had just happened. She stood in the rain, and I lay in a pool of my own blood. For a moment, our eyes met, and it felt like we were worlds apart. She could see my face, but the world was silent. The image of my face as I fell replayed in her mind. The look in my eyes hadn't been one of pain. It had been one of relief. Did I really want to leave her that badly? A furious, helpless anger burned in her cold eyes. If Ryan hadn't been there, holding her tight, pleading with her to think of the baby, she might have lost control completely. She touched her stomach, hesitated, then let him lead her inside. She let him lead her to the bathroom, help her out of her wet clothes, and put her to bed. She lay there, staring at the ceiling, unresponsive to his gentle reassurances, unable to sleep. She desperately wanted to know if I was alive, but the memory of my determined plunge was a knife in her heart. If you want to die so badly, then just die, she finally spat into the darkness. Just stay out of my sight. With that, she closed her eyes, swearing she was done with me for good. This wasn't my first time in an emergency room. I had taken a huge risk. Locked away with no contact with the outside world, my only option was to do something drastic enough to get Mr. Harrison's attention. It worked. After they stabilized me, he was the first person I saw. I was weak, but my eyes shone with hope. I tried to sit up. Just rest, son, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I'll take care of everything from here. He spoke with the doctors first, who assured him I would recover with time. Then he came and sat by my bed, holding my hand, tears in his eyes, apologizing over and over for failing my parents, for not protecting me. I told him I wanted to leave. Before he left, he simply said, "All right," and walked out without looking back. I watched his stooped figure disappear down the hall, a wave of guilt washing over me. I shouldn't have dragged him into this, but it was the only way I could think of to escape Chloe's control. Mr. Harrison had lost his son and daughter-in-law years ago, and his own granddaughter had gone missing. It was my family who had found and adopted Chloe, returning her to him. He was eternally grateful to my family for that, so much so that he had wanted Chloe and me to marry. He had never imagined she would not only reject me, but torture me, crossing a line he could not ignore. When I chose to jump rather than stay with her, he finally understood that he couldn't force the issue. He had to resolve this once and for all. He couldn't bear the thought of failing my parents again. That night, Mr. Harrison stormed into the mansion. When he saw Chloe sitting calmly on the sofa, he walked over and slapped her hard across the face. Ryan's face went pale, and he immediately fell to his knees before the old man. "Grandfather, please, this has nothing to do with Chloe. It was all my idea." Mr. Harrison looked down at him, exuding the authority of a true patriarch. He had been a titan of industry for decades, and he had an aura of power that could make anyone tremble. In recent years, as Chloe had taken over the family business, he had softened, settling into retirement. But the old lion still had his teeth. A single look from him was enough to make Ryan turn pale. Chloe wiped the blood from her lip and met her grandfather's furious gaze without flinching. "When Ethan's parents entrusted him to your care, is this how you repay them?" he roared, his face red with anger. Chloe sneered back. "I have never mistreated him. It was your tacit approval that allowed him to develop those disgusting ideas in the first place. I will honor my family's debt to his, but I will never, ever marry him." The old man was speechless. Her gaze was resolute. "Since the day I came back to this family, I have done everything you've asked of me. Everything. But when it comes to who I love, that is my choice. And I love Ryan." Her animosity towards me wasn't just about my feelings for her. It was also a way of rebelling against him, the one thing she had ever denied him. He gripped his cane, ready to unleash a torrent of angry words, but then he saw the tears welling in her eyes, and his anger deflated, replaced by a weary sigh. "If that's the case," he said, his voice heavy, "then why won't you let him go?" This time it was Chloe who was silent. "From now on," he continued, "I will not stand in the way of your marriage. I will even attend the wedding myself. But in return, you must let Ethan go. For good." Chloe stared at him, stunned. Ryan, on the other hand, was ecstatic and shot her a look, urging her to agree. Mr. Harrison had refused to attend both previous wedding attempts, not only because he saw me as her rightful husband, but also because he had never approved of Ryan. It was a source of great resentment for Ryan, but he had never dared to voice it. Now, the old man was finally giving his blessing. It was everything Ryan had ever wanted. But under her grandfather's stern gaze, Chloe seemed lost. She should have been thrilled. The love she had fought for so long was finally being accepted. But when she thought of me leaving forever, she felt no joy at all. "Don't forget you're pregnant," her grandfather said, his final word on the matter, before turning and leaving. The color drained from her face again. She placed a hand on her stomach, her mind a tangled mess. 2 weeks later, I was discharged from the hospital and I headed straight for the airport. Even with my grandfather's promise, I didn't want to stay in this city a second longer than I had to. I had a feeling Chloe wouldn't let me go that easily. I was right. Halfway to the airport, her men intercepted me and took me back to the mansion. She stared at me, searching my eyes, but the adoration and hope that had once been there were gone, replaced by a cold emptiness. "You'd really rather die than stay here with me?" she asked, her voice tight with suppressed rage. I gave a bitter laugh. Hadn't I made that clear enough? She was shaking with fury. With a wave of her hand, a dump truck pulled up, its bed filled with glowing red coals, a wave of heat washing over us. The long driveway, stretching from the mansion to the main gate, was quickly covered in a bed of burning embers. "Walk across this," she said, a cold sneer on her face, "and your debt to this family will be paid. Ethan Harrison, I have been good to you, and how have you repaid me? You ruined my wedding twice out of your own selfish desires. Is that your idea of gratitude? If you see this house as a prison, if you're so desperate to leave, then walk. Make it to the other side, and you and I are finished." Her voice was devoid of all emotion. She ignored the horrified pleas of her staff. In her mind, this was all just another one of my tantrums, another dramatic performance. She was tired of my games. She wanted to be done with me. She wanted to push me to the absolute limit. Without a word, I took off my shoes and started walking. Her assistant rushed forward to stop me. "Young master, don't. You'll be killed." Chloe's eyes blazed. "Leave him," she screamed. When she saw me step onto the coals without a moment's hesitation, the sickening smell of burning flesh filling the air, her voice died in her throat. Her pupils constricted, a look of pure shock on her face. She knew exactly what she was doing. My parents had burned to death in their car. I had been terrified of fire ever since. She had chosen this torment specifically to break me, to force me to beg. But I would rather walk through fire than spend another day by her side. She stood frozen, biting her lip so hard it bled. A sudden clap of thunder, and the heavens opened up, a torrential downpour extinguishing the coals. Her vision blurred. She didn't even see me leave. She just stood there, letting the cold rain soak her, her face pale and drawn. Even then, she couldn't accept it. I was really gone. No one dared to approach her. The murderous look in her eyes was enough to terrify anyone. Even Ryan was shoved away when he tried to comfort her. When the rain finally stopped, she collapsed, and the mansion descended into chaos. Chloe woke up in the hospital a different person. She was silent, withdrawn, her face a permanent, joyless mask. No one but Ryan dared to go near her. After she was discharged, she threw herself into her work with a terrifying intensity. Her doctors warned her she was risking a miscarriage. Ryan pleaded with her to slow down. She ignored them all. For a week, she used work to numb the pain, but in every quiet moment, my face would appear in her mind. She remembered me at 6 years old, my face lit by the sun, my eyes so full of hope. She remembered my 18th birthday, how I had blushed when she kissed my cheek. The memories flooded her, and she shook her head, trying to force them away. But the thoughts were like embers, glowing brighter and brighter. She returned to the mansion in a daze. As she approached the door, the familiar smell of dinner cooking wafted out to greet her. A look of pure joy transformed her face, and she rushed inside. Seeing a figure busy in the kitchen, she called out, "Ethan!" But when she saw who it was, the air went still. It was Ryan holding a bowl of soup. The smile on his face slowly vanished, replaced by a jealous rage so intense it felt like it could burn the house down. For a week, ever since I had left, she had been a different person. She no longer revolved around him. She barely even noticed he was there. And now, hearing her call out my name, his patience finally snapped. "I knew it," he hissed. "You've fallen in love with him, haven't you?" Before she could answer, he stormed out of the house. This time, she didn't run after him. She just stared at the shattered soup bowl on the floor, a perfect mirror of her own fractured heart. His question echoed in the silent house, leaving her feeling lost and confused. Was it true? Was she in love with me? The moment the thought entered her mind, a look of disgust crossed her face. How could she possibly be in love with me, the boy she had raised? She was 10 years older than me. For the next month, as if to prove to herself that Ryan was the one she truly loved, she showered him with affection. Hot air balloons floated over the city, trailing banners that read, "Chloe Harrison loves Ryan Cole forever," a public spectacle of her devotion. At night, digital billboards across the city displayed their engagement photos. Their love story became a modern-day fairy tale, the stuff of legends. As the ultimate proof of her love, she planned a third wedding, promising Ryan that this time, the whole world would witness their happiness. Ryan was moved to tears, whispering endless words of love to her. On the day of the wedding, Mr. Harrison kept his promise. He came to the chapel and presented Ryan with a family heirloom, a gift reserved for the man who married his granddaughter. Ryan's eyes filled with tears as he took it, kneeling respectfully before the old man and calling him grandfather. He knew this was it. The old man had finally accepted him. The whole world was watching this spectacular wedding. Mr. Harrison had even invited his oldest and most influential friends, a clear sign that he was giving the couple his full support. This was a level of support he had never shown before. Everyone assumed this time the wedding would finally happen. Ryan was backstage, lost in a daydream about his future, when he realized Chloe was nowhere to be found. They searched everywhere, but there was no sign of her. Cold panic gripped Ryan. He thought of the last two fiascos, and his eyes filled with a familiar, bitter rage. He had been publicly humiliated twice, the butt of every joke, the subject of endless gossip. If she did this to him again, his reputation would be destroyed forever. But this time, she didn't just postpone it. She ran. Everyone waited for the bride to appear. Hours passed. She never came. The venue descended into chaos. Mr. Harrison, his face a thundercloud, roared at his men to find her. But as day turned to night, there was still no sign of Chloe. The wedding of the century had become the joke of the century. The guests were gone. Ryan stood alone in the center of the empty chapel, his expensive suit a mockery, his face a canvas of shifting emotions. Suddenly, he threw his head back and laughed, a wild, unhinged sound, and began smashing everything in sight until he was so consumed by rage that he collapsed, coughing up blood. He lay on the floor, his eyes vacant. He had lost. He had lost everything. This time, I hadn't been there to interfere. Her grandfather had given his blessing. There had been nothing standing in their way. And still, she had left him. A bottomless despair washed over him, and in its depths, a terrible, poisonous hatred began to grow. He ripped off his tuxedo jacket and stormed out. He had hated me, and he had hated her grandfather. But now, he hated Chloe most of all. The entire city was searching for her, but Chloe had gone to the abandoned orphanage where we first met. She stood outside the fence, staring at the blooming morning glories, her expression unreadable. She didn't understand it. She had tried so hard to prove to herself, to the world, that Ryan was the only one she loved. But every time she did, the image of my back as I walked away from her, broken and defeated, would flash in her mind. She had fought it for so long, but at the most critical moment, she had faltered. She couldn't deny it any longer. She cared about me, but she loved Ryan. Torn between the two of us, she felt like she was going insane. It was as if some invisible force was compelling her to choose Ryan, to hurt me. But every time she felt a flicker of something for me, that same force would crush it. But now something had shifted. She felt like she had broken free of its grasp, and a new, radical thought took root in her mind. She had to find me. But where was I? I was back in Sedona. The walk across the coals had left me with severe burns. I had been in the hospital for over a month. My legs still hadn't fully healed, but I didn't care. I came back to my little house on the mountainside, this time in a wheelchair. The morning glories were still blooming on the fence. My unfinished painting was still on its easel. The plot of land I had bought for my grave was still empty. I lived each day as if it were my last. Without me in the way, Chloe and Ryan would surely get married soon and live happily ever after. And their wedding day would be the day I died. I waited for it calmly. Could be tomorrow or next year or in the next second. I didn't care. I just wanted to savor this freedom while it lasted. The mountain air was crisp and cool, and it tasted sweet. I still hadn't worked up the courage to ask the girl next door her name. The memory of being dragged away by Chloe, right in front of her, was too humiliating. My favorite thing to do was to wheel myself out to the grassy patch under the big juniper tree and look out over the town. I don't know how many times I had dozed off there in the sun, but one afternoon, I woke to the sweet scent of jasmine. I opened my eyes, and for a moment, I was speechless. The girl from next door, the one who never left her house, was walking past me, carrying an easel. Our eyes met, and I got a good look at her for the first time. She was tall and strikingly beautiful, with delicate features, but she still had that unapproachable air about her. I knew just by looking at her that we were from different worlds. Still, I gave her a polite, neighborly nod. I expected her to just walk on, but she stopped. "What are you doing?" she asked. I was so surprised that she had spoken to me that I didn't know what to say. But then I remembered who I was, what I was. I looked out at the clouds drifting by, at the birds soaring overhead. "Waiting to die," I said quietly. She blinked, her large eyes studying me for a moment, as if she were seriously considering my answer. Then, she smiled. It was like the sun breaking through the clouds, and it lit up my entire world. So she wasn't as cold as she seemed. Her smile was beautiful. Her name was Summer. That was the first time we ever spoke. The next day, my legs were strong enough to walk on again. The first thing I did was grab my easel and head down the mountain. I was still waiting to die, of course. I was sure that now that I was gone, Chloe and Ryan would have gotten married right away. But I had been waiting for a long time, and death hadn't come. And there were still so many things I wanted to do. I wanted to finish my painting. I wanted to explore every corner of this town. I wanted to fill my little yard with morning glories. Once I had done all those things, I could rest in peace in the plot I had chosen for myself. I never expected that I would be doing them with Summer by my side. I ran into her on my way out, easel in hand. We looked at each other, and without a word, a silent understanding passed between us. We went down the mountain together. We explored the town. We watched the sunrise from the top of the mountain. We sketched the old buildings by the creek. We even joined the art students for a bonfire one night. As I watched the firelight dance on their young faces, I wondered when my time would come. But even if I died right then, in that moment I thought it would have been worth it. The walk home was dark, but the path was lit by a full moon and 1,000 fireflies. The world was so quiet I could hear her heartbeat, or maybe it was my own. I never asked her why she was living here, all alone on this mountain. Everyone has their secrets. We walked the whole way in a comfortable silence, a silent conversation passing between us. When we reached her door, she paused, a look of quiet expectation in her eyes. I knew what she was waiting for. I knew that one word from me could change everything. But I kept my mouth shut and went inside my own house. I was a dead man walking. How could I let her waste her time, her feelings on me? My days were full. I worked on my painting, and I planted morning glory seeds all over my little yard. One bright morning, I woke to the sound of birdsong and headed out with my easel, just like any other day. And just like every other day, I ran into Summer on her way out, and we walked down the mountain together in our usual, comfortable silence. The morning sun was warm on my skin. I glanced over at her, at the graceful line of her neck. She was a work of art, and suddenly I knew, my painting, the one I could never seem to finish, it was missing its soul, and she was it. I stopped, about to ask her if she would let me paint her, when a sudden chill ran down my spine. I looked up and my blood ran cold. Chloe was standing a short distance away, watching us, her expression unreadable. It was like a line had been drawn down the middle of the world. On one side, sunshine. On the other, a gathering storm. As she walked towards us, the storm clouds rolled in, blotting out the sun, plunging my world back into darkness. A heavy, suffocating feeling settled over me. I looked down at my easel. It looked like I would never get to finish my painting after all. Chloe's eyes landed on Summer, and seeing us together, her face hardened. "You've had your fun for a few months. Isn't it time to come home?" I just looked at her, my expression blank. I was done trying to explain anything to her. In her world, the only truth was what she decided it was. She pointed at Summer, a nasty sneer on her face. "So this is why you didn't want to come home. You found some little tramp to entertain you. You're just a boy. What could you possibly know about love, especially with a scheming woman like this?" Before I could say a word, she grabbed my arm and started dragging me towards her car. I pulled my arm free and took a few steps back, my resolve firm. She looked at me, stunned. "You would defy me? For her?" I laughed, a harsh, angry sound. "You said that if I walked across those coals, we would be even. You would no longer be my aunt, and I would no longer be your nephew. So, by what right do you stand here and tell me what to do?" She was seething. "By the right of the woman who raised you." I was angry. "I didn't mean it. I'm giving you one last chance. Come home with me, and we can forget any of this ever happened. But if you continue to be stubborn, don't blame me for what happens next. Your parents entrusted you to me. I will not allow you to throw your life away out here. I was immune to her self-righteous justifications. I shook my head, my gaze unwavering. I would rather die here in this town and be buried in that plot of land I chose. He clearly doesn't want to go. Why are you forcing him? Summer stepped forward, standing beside me, ignoring Chloe's icy glare. He's an adult. He can make his own decisions. My face went pale. I quickly pushed her away from me. Chloe was a monster. She was capable of anything. I couldn't let her get hurt because of me. But Summer stood her ground, determined to defend me, and she began to lecture Chloe on her behavior. She had seen how Chloe treated me, like I was her possession, not a person. Even as a stranger, she had been horrified by Chloe's cruelty. And now, her feelings for me made it impossible for her to stay silent. This is insane. You can't just do whatever you want. The Harrisons don't own the world. Summer pulled out her phone to call the police, but Chloe's bodyguards seized her and threw her to the ground. Chloe's face was a mask of ice. She stepped on Summer's hand, her cold eyes fixing on me. You continue to disappoint me. I was horrified. This has nothing to do with her. Let her go. I'll go with you. My surrender didn't please her. It only made her angrier. I, who would rather die than return to her, was now willing to give up my freedom for this girl. It was a clear sign of how much Summer meant to me and how little she did. A bitter, jealous rage filled her heart. She had postponed her wedding 3 times for me. She had driven Ryan to the brink of insanity. She had defied her grandfather, all to come here and ask me to come home. She had been torn between me and Ryan for months, tormented by her indecision. When she had finally made up her mind, found a solution she thought could work, she had rushed here, only to find me with someone else. Seeing me with another woman drove her mad with jealousy. Answer me, she screamed. She had her men drag Summer to the edge of a nearby cliff. Are you coming home with me or not? I was terrified. I fell to my knees, trembling, begging her to let Summer go. Don't beg her, Summer screamed, her face contorted with rage. Chloe waved a dismissive hand and turned back to her car. If you ever see her again, she said over her shoulder, I'll bury her right here. A chill of pure terror went down my spine. I knew she wasn't bluffing. I took one last look at Summer, ignoring her protests, and closed my eyes, accepting my fate. After a long moment, I stood up and walked towards Chloe's car. Her men threw Summer to the ground. As the car pulled away, Summer ran after us, her face a mask of anguish. I stared out the window, unseeing, the vibrant landscape of Sedona turning to a gray, colorless blur. Chloe was pleased with my submission. Her voice was uncharacteristically gentle. Home is wherever I am, Ethan. Don't worry. Even after I'm married, I won't punish you anymore. We'll live peacefully. And when you meet a nice girl, I'll even help you make sure she's right for you. I said nothing. Beneath my silent exterior, a new fire was kindling. Not love, not desire, but a cold, burning need for revenge. All feelings of gratitude or affection I had ever had for her were gone, replaced by a pure, unadulterated hatred. I had given in, I had run thousands of miles away, and still I could not escape her. The hatred calmed me, focused me, turned my heart to ice, and I finally knew what I had to do. I was taken back to the mansion and locked in the storage room for 3 days. I didn't fight. Whatever she did to me, I accepted it without a word. I spent my days staring out the small window at the sky, and I never spoke to her. When she finally let me out, she seemed to think I would eventually forget about Summer. She let me eat at the dining table with her, and even made me soup herself. Her pregnancy was beginning to show, and she had a soft, maternal glow about her. She watched me as I ate in silence, a rare smile on her face as she reminisced. Do you remember the night you first came home from the orphanage? She ladled some soup into my bowl, her eyes soft with memory. You were so scared back then, you wouldn't even sleep in your own bed. You slept in my arms every night until you were 10 years old. I remained silent. She continued, lost in her own memories. I told you I would always treat you like family, that we would never be apart, and I meant it. I promise I won't marry Ryan. How does that sound? My head snapped up to look at her. Chloe was pleased with my reaction, a small smile playing on her lips. You said you would die if I got married, didn't you? Fine. I promise you I will never get married. How about that? We'll all live here together, under one roof, for the rest of our lives. Inside, I was anything but calm. I never imagined she would be willing to give up Ryan for me. But my relief was short-lived. Chloe continued, I've already made a huge concession. I'm giving up marriage for you, so you should be happy now, right? No more tantrums. Ryan will be over later. From now on, the 3 of us will live together. I stared down at the soup, tasted bitter, absurd. I had actually thought she might have changed, but this was just her selfishness in a new form. No wedding, but she would still live with Ryan, raise their child, and I would be forced to stay and watch their happy family. She couldn't give up her true love, but she refused to set me free, so she had devised this twisted way to keep me caged. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't refuse. Instead, I said, "Whatever you think is best, Chloe." She thought I had finally seen reason, and her face lit up with ecstatic relief as she grabbed my hand. "That's right. We wouldn't want to upset grandfather. This is the perfect solution." Soon after, Ryan arrived. When he saw me, a venomous glint flashed in his eyes, but he quickly masked it with a smile. "Ethan, it's good to have you home. We're all a family here. Let's not do anything to upset Chloe, especially now that she's pregnant." He thought his words would provoke me, make me lose my composure as they always had before, but I just nodded calmly. "I understand, Uncle Ryan. I won't cause any more trouble." Ryan was left speechless, managing only an awkward smile. For the next few weeks, I was the model of obedience. I didn't try to run away. I became the perfect nephew Chloe had always wanted, doting on her during her pregnancy and patiently tolerating all of Ryan's provocations. Chloe saw all of this and she was pleased. She was certain I had finally been tamed, that the three of them could now live together in her twisted version of domestic harmony. Once the baby was born, she imagined, their happiness would be complete. A month passed. I was so well behaved that she started letting me leave the house on my own. I knew it was just another test, so I always returned exactly when I said I would. Slowly, she began to relax her vigilance. I didn't go back to Sedona. I just wandered the streets of New York. I was waiting for the right moment. My good behavior began to wear on Ryan. Before, he had always had the upper hand. Chloe would always take his side, and I would be the one to suffer. But now it was as if she had regained her sanity. She no longer blindly sided with him. She even told him to stop being so paranoid. It drove Ryan mad. The better I behaved, the more pleased she was with me, and several times, she even forced Ryan to apologize to me. He was on the verge of a complete breakdown. He had faked his gentle, understanding persona for years to get into the Harrison family. There was no way he could truly tolerate a rival. The next time Ryan tried to frame me for something, Chloe didn't just ignore him. She slapped him across the face and locked him in the storage room to give him a taste of what I had endured. I could see the hatred in his eyes, but it wasn't enough. So I arranged a little accident, a car crash that I barely survived. Chloe investigated, and the evidence I had planted led her straight to Ryan. He knelt before her, begging for forgiveness, and for a moment her resolve wavered. She was about to let it go, but from my hospital bed, I pulled out my .4 and pretended to give up on life. That changed everything. At her insistence, a full investigation was launched into Ryan's affairs. The more they dug, the more they found. Chloe was horrified to learn that all the little accidents that had befallen Ryan over the years, the ones that had always made her feel so sorry for him, had all been staged. She thought of all the times she had blamed me, punished me for things he had orchestrated, and she flew into a rage. No matter how much he pleaded, she had him disciplined with the whip. 100 lashes, until his back was a bloody mess and his screams echoed through the house. He was beaten unconscious, but that wasn't enough for her. She had her men hold him down, saying she was going to give me the justice I deserved and teach him a lesson he would never forget. And so, Ryan was made to suffer every torment he had ever inflicted on me. He was forced to endure staged accidents and even a walk across burning coals. After weeks of torture, he was a broken man. As he was carried away on a stretcher after his walk of fire, he looked at Chloe and me standing in the doorway, his eyes burning with a deep, venomous hatred. Seeing me standing there so obediently by her side, in the place that had once been his, something inside him snapped. A murderous rage filled his heart. He wanted us both dead. I saw the hatred in his eyes, and I wasn't afraid. I was thrilled. My chance to be free of Chloe, once and for all, was finally within my grasp. Chloe had punished Ryan severely, all to get justice for me. In her mind, she had done nothing wrong. She just wanted the two men in her life to get along. After another violent argument, she decided their relationship was too volatile for a family. So she terminated the pregnancy. The baby had been the only thing keeping Ryan there, the only thing tethering them together. Now, with the baby gone, he completely snapped. The love and adoration he once had for her were gone, replaced by a hatred more intense than anything I had ever seen. I sat in my room, listening to them scream at each other, my expression calm as I gazed out the window. The morning glories I had planted were in full bloom. I realized I had been back at the mansion for almost a year. Ryan smashed a priceless vase in the living room, As he was leaving, he pointed up at my room, his face a mask of contempt. Chloe, you say you love me, but you keep him here, your little pet. Don't pretend I don't know what you really want. It's sick. Now I see how truly disgusting you are. We're through. Enraged, Chloe slapped him. He wiped the blood from his lip and walked out without another word. She watched him go, his determined stride so familiar. It was how I had looked a year ago. She thought of all they had been through, and for a moment, she wanted to run after him to apologize. But her pride, the pride that had always kept her in control, wouldn't let her. She watched until he was gone, then collapsed onto the sofa, tears of regret streaming down her face, cursing him for being weak. After everything she had endured to be with him, that night I cooked dinner as usual and brought it to her room. Before I could knock, the door swung open, revealing her pale, drawn face. Chloe, I began, my voice full of feigned sadness. Ryan really does love you. I truly want you both to be happy. Since my being here upsets him so much, I think it's best if I leave. I finished with a bitter, resigned smile. No! She grabbed my hand, her voice thick with emotion. This isn't your fault. It's his. He's being petty and jealous. You're staying here. If he can't accept that, then he doesn't deserve to be my husband. I let my eyes well up with tears, as if I were deeply moved. For the next few days, I doted on her, my every look filled with a deeper affection than I had ever shown before. Overwhelmed by memories of our happier times, she finally broke down, sobbing in my arms. It was late and we were alone. Her breathing was shallow and quick, her hands resting on my chest. In the dim light, I could see the raw emotion in her eyes. She was aroused, spurred on by Ryan's accusations and her own pent-up frustrations. She was desperate for a release. She had forgotten I was her nephew. Her eyes were hazy with desire. This was the moment I had dreamed of for 9 lifetimes. But now that it was here, I felt nothing. My heart was a placid lake. I fought back a wave of nausea and gently brushed my lips against hers. Then I pulled away and stood up to leave, making sure to look conflicted and tormented as I fled the room. It worked. She was now convinced that I loved her, and she began to entertain the fantasy of breaking the ultimate taboo and being with me. As she watched me flee up the stairs, a slow, adoring smile spread across her face. She loved Ryan. The novel's plot demanded it. But she couldn't let me go either. The thrill of the forbidden was too intoxicating, and she was drowning in it. She hadn't noticed the small flash from the hidden camera in the corner as she pressed against me. When I got back to my room, I scrubbed at my lips, feeling so disgusted I wanted to claw my own skin off. Her touch made my stomach turn. But for my plan to work, I had to endure it. It wouldn't be for much longer. The next day, a frantic call came. Ryan had locked himself in his apartment and was threatening suicide. Blood was seeping out from under the door, but no one could get in. Chloe truly did love him. She flew out of the house like a madwoman, rushing to his side, but on the way, her car crashed, and she was knocked unconscious. I woke late the next morning to a bright, sunny day. I sat by my window and calmly watched her car speed away. I knew Ryan's revenge had begun. After 9 lifetimes, I had finally understood. Chloe had never loved anyone but herself. She was a profoundly selfish woman, and Ryan was a psychopath who had only been biding his time, waiting for the right moment to strike. For a year, I had played the part of the obedient nephew, earning her trust, letting her believe she was in complete control. It was all a lie. I had been reborn into this world 9 times, and no matter what I did, I was always just a stepping stone for their love story. But after all the pain she had inflicted on me, I had finally realized there was another way to survive. I had to kill her, and Ryan was the perfect weapon. I sat by the window and waited. The curtains fluttered in the breeze, obscuring the view of the morning glories in the yard. 3 hours passed. Then the phone rang. I looked at the caller ID, my expression unchanged. On the 3rd ring, I answered. "Ethan, help me." It was Chloe, her voice weak and full of pain. "Ryan's gone insane. He's trying to kill me." Ryan's voice, distorted with rage, screamed in the background. "You're still thinking about him, even now. You never loved me. You promised, Chloe. You promised we'd be together forever. Well, now we can be. In death. Ryan, no." A final, terrified scream, and then silence. I hung up the phone. I took my packed suitcase from the closet and calmly walked out of the mansion. For the first time in 9 lifetimes, I was walking away with no baggage, completely and utterly free. I didn't look back. There was nothing left for me there. Chloe was dead, and I was free, forever. I returned to Sedona. I walked the familiar stone paths, crossed the small arched bridge over the creek, my heart at peace. When I finally reached my little house on the mountainside, I stopped, stunned. My morning glories were in full bloom, but it was the peach tree in the yard next door that caught my eye. Its blossoms were a riot of pink, a beacon of spring, and under that tree, a familiar figure was painting, completely absorbed in her work. I walked up behind her, and she didn't even notice I was there. When I saw what she was painting, my breath caught in my throat. It was my painting, the one I had left unfinished. She had completed it for me. A soft smile touched my lips. As if sensing my presence, summer turned, and our eyes met. Time stood still, and in the quiet mountain air, the peach blossoms bloomed.